Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Terry Wildemann with Intuitive Leadership, and I have brought an amazing group of women who really understand what stress is all about. I myself, as an entrepreneur, have burned out multiple times, so I get it. And having been an entrepreneur since the age of 18, I am now 65. And what I'll tell you is that integrating everything that we do in our world and staying grounded and centered is a lot of work. So when it comes to stress, these fantastic women who are all entrepreneurs in their own right, we're going to be sharing tips and tricks and our own personal stories about why we do what we do to assist our ideal clients to be able to manage the stress in their lives. So I'm going to start. On my screen, I'm in the middle. So I'm going to start with Annette. Annette, can you introduce yourself, please?
Mhm.
Share with us who your ideal audience is and why are you an entrepreneur?
Mhm. I'm Annette Meinzer, and my ideal audience are people that are either widowed or widowed, widow or widowers, have lost a spouse or a partner and are struggling in their life and help them to get back out into life and living again, as well as people who've been diagnosed with cancer. And I help them to become whole again, to move back into their place of wholeness and to really to live their life again and to step out and to create that wellness in their life again. So I have been an entrepreneur since I was a young age as well. I grew up with a family of entrepreneurs. I helped my husband with his business until he passed. And then at that point in time, I stepped in and created my own business. So I have had jobs in between, and I like the entrepreneur life a lot better.
So I'm curious, Annette, how did you get into this business? What got you into working with this specific audience?
My mom passed of cancer, and so I really was helping her to heal with cancer, and so that got me into working with in the cancer industry and doing coaching in that clientele. And then when my husband passed, I sort of shifted gears and also added in the widows and widowers and people who have gone through loss in their life as well, because that was near and dear to my heart as well. And I find both of these groups are really need a lot of support and assistance. And I have a nursing background, so I became board certified as a nurse coach and other certifications. So these people are near and dear to my heart. And so it's like really wanting to go out there and help them and make a difference in their lives.
That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you for the work that you do. How very special is that?
Oh, thank you.
Now I'm going to go to my right. Christina, can
Mhm.
you share with us all about who is your ideal client, all about you, and why you're an entrepreneur?
Oh my goodness. I have a very different background than both of you, actually. Um, I'm Christina Solstad, and I spent a good chunk of my career as a scientist and doing biomedical research and then in the environmental field, even running around power plants with a hard hat and doing testing at all times of day and night and stuff like that. And then a lot of time in the lab. So that's my background and many years in corporate. So I'm familiar with the corporate world. But I always had something on the side, which is kind of interesting, especially like that was primarily with my photography and then with my Reiki and things like that. I learned energy stuff. So along with my science, I've had this deep spiritual exploration that I've been doing for many, many years as well. And I tended to have people would come to me for support, for me to listen to them, for me to help them with something, or just to be in my energy, even in the corporate world. And when I took when I did a year-long program on energy coaching, that's when I really first started thinking about, oh, I could help other people with this. And that started that journey. So that's been my entrepreneurial journey, going from corporate to entrepreneur. I love helping people transform their lives, really, is the bottom line to it. And I help primarily women entrepreneurs and help them really, what I'm super passionate about is helping them to bring all of them to to the world and to their business. You know, for entrepreneurs, that's how we bring our gifts to the world, is through our business, right? And helping them really shine and bring a lot more ease and flow to that, so their business thrives. So that's what I love doing. And I bring a lot of the energy work to it, along with business strategies and that kind of thing.
And the energy work is so very powerful. I really don't know, people don't realize that when we bring that energy piece in, things do get a lot easier getting into that calm, ease, and flow. So thank you for what you do, Christina.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Michele, tell us all about you and who your ideal audience is and why you became an entrepreneur.
Okay, I'm Michele Benyo, and I am a parent coach and a grief specialist and a bereaved mom. And my purpose and passion is really to help young children in the early childhood age who have lost a sibling to grow up whole and happy. And I do that by working with the caring adults who raise those children, particularly parents, but also caregivers. And I equip them with the tools to help those children develop hope and resilience. And so it's just really helping parents. You know, I need to start with helping parents help themselves. I always start with the self-care piece and just helping them to deal with the overwhelm of having lost a child and then having a young family that needs to grow up in the shadow of that grief. And the reason that I do this is because I had that experience myself. I was actually a parent educator before any of this happened in my family. I had a master's in family education, and my passion was to help families grow up, you know, parents raise children in strong families with healthy relationships and healthy ways of coping and growing. And when my 6-year-old son died of cancer after a 2.5-year battle, my 3-year-old daughter said to me, "Mommy, half of me is gone." And here I was working with families like this to raise children like of her age, and I didn't know how to do this. So I had to figure it out. And I know every parent is overwhelmed and lost and devastated, as I was. And so now I work with them to overcome all of those challenges. But the person that I'm doing this for is the little one that loses half of themselves when their sibling dies.
Very special. Thank you so much for sharing that, Michele. You are so very needed. And there's a lot of connections between you and Annette
Yes.
with the work that you're doing. And little did we know that when we brought our panel together.
Yes.
So, and
Annette and I know that.
Yeah, but everybody else doesn't realize that. So I'm really glad that we have made that connection. Tzeli, our resident psychotherapist or psychologist?
I'm a toxicologist.
Toxicologist. Okay.
No. So
yeah, tell us all about you.
Okay. So I'm a stress management coach currently, and the founder of Mindzen, an unconventional stress management business. And I'm on a mission to help heart-centered professionals, therapists, counselors, coaches, to learn the practical everyday ways they can stop stress from messing with their mind, with their body, with their relationships, with their performance, and so on and so forth. Now, the birth of my mission is kind of unorthodox, if you will, because what happened, just like you, Terry, and just like Christina, I was a toxicologist doing cancer research in the laboratories, then had a 20-year successful career. So you could say I put all my ducks in a row to make sure that I could enjoy a less stressful and fulfilling life. But despite all my knowledge, all my expertise, all my success, I burned out in the worst possible way. So burnout led me to a significant injury in my spine. And I'm actually currently now in between surgeries and multiple different alternative modalities to deal with excruciating pain of my own spine, pinching my own nerve 24/7. So I'm extremely passionate about my mission. And combining my 10 years of scientific education in the laboratories, my corporate healthcare career, my certifications as an integrated wellness practitioner, burnout and compassion fatigue specialist, and most of all, my own healing journey. I'm so passionate to show people how they can work with their body and their mind to actually stop external stressors from making themselves at home and impacting how we feel, how we'll function, and most importantly, our well-being and our health. So that's me in a nutshell.
And what I'm getting from all of you validates a phrase that I often say, which is what sunk the Titanic is what was unseen. From the neck up, which is what is above the water of the iceberg, is the practical, tactical, and logical. And from the neck down is the emotional, the energetic, the spiritual, the intuitive. And when we bring it all together, then we're in a very powerful place. So each of you have shared in your story how the primary part of this is not the practical, tactical, and logical. It's how we work with stress. And I'm not going to say handle stress, I'm going to say work with stress from our mindset to our hearts, from the neck down. So I'd like to ask whoever would like to answer this. When you think of the word stress and you are interacting with your client, what's the very first thing that pops in your mind? Whoever wants to pop.
Self-care.
Okay, so tell me more about self-care, Michele.
Well, you know, when parents have lost a child, in my case, and they're, you know, they've got this family and they don't know how to do any of it. And so they're trying to do for their child, which of course is what I want to help them do. But they can't do any of that if they don't take care of themselves first. And so that's where I start with them is, you know, self-care is not selfish. It's really necessary and it's foundational for them to do anything else for their family. So
Absolutely.
that's where I start with them.
So that's like being in the airplane, putting the oxygen mask on yourself
Exactly.
first so you can help the person that's next to you. And entrepreneurs forget to do that because there are so many moving parts. And if you don't have a team, you're working at doing it all on your own. So where do we find the harmony? Notice I'm saying harmony instead of balance. Where are we finding the harmony in all the moving parts? So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Yes. For me, what comes up when you say that is that the first thing the first thing that I do with my clients really is when they're dealing with something, because I do a lot of energetic work to really help them move through whatever's stopping them, is to get them present right here, right now, in this moment. Let them stop and be present and be present to whatever it is that they're feeling, the stress they're feeling, the whatever it is, without trying to like push it down or ignore it or make it be different. And that is the beginning of the process that is, it's profound, you know, for people when you can be present to what's actually going on instead of ignoring it. Yeah, it's so valuable.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. Thank you for sharing that. That is really big. So Annette or Tzeli?
Well, what I can say is something that I cannot unsee now, because of course, in the past, when I was thinking about stress, I'm like, well, it's the price I have to pay to be successful and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I cannot unsee the original definition of stress now in my mind from Tzeli, Dr. Tzeli, the father of stress. So what comes to my mind now is that stress is the adaptive response of my body to change. So when I keep that in my mind as a young entrepreneur, because I only launched my business less than 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, I'm thinking, okay, so since stress is the response of my body to change, how can I close down irrelevant windows so that my response does not become maladaptive? Because in essence, stress is invaluable. It's an invaluable survival strategy. But when I'm engaging it for, I have a goal with Terry. I have to do my pilot. I have to record videos. I have to do this. I have to do that. Then the response becomes maladaptive. So that kind of centers me in thinking, okay, what can I shut down? What can I, you guys haven't seen me in the Facebook group because I realized that, okay, right now I'm creating content. I'm doing a lot of stuff that I don't know how to do. So my center is keeping my stress response adaptive and not maladaptive.
What I'm hearing is you have put up very healthy boundaries.
I'm working on it. Boundaries is an area of improvement for me, but I'm certainly working on it. And, sometimes it's interesting because there's so much, hype about setting intentions, but I know I'm in good company. Intentions are powerful. If I intend to keep my stress and rest and digest stances in balance, that drives my actions, So when somebody reaches out and says, hey, can we have a Zoom call? I'll be like, okay, let's talk after this date, because until then I'm doing this. And I don't want to push myself too much to the point where, because I have gone there before, just like you, Terry. I've experienced burnout. So I know when my body now is talking to me and it's telling me, okay, too many relevant windows, you need to shut some things down, and I'm okay with it now. I used to be a teacher, so I wanted to do it all. Now I'm okay with saying, guys, I'm sorry I miss you, but I can't really participate in Facebook group or in Alina's event. I missed leverage, but that's okay. My balance and my well-being is more important. Going to Michelle's point, if I cannot take care of me, I'm not gonna be able to support anybody else.
Right.
And to your point, Tzeli, all of you know I'm a Navy spouse. And when my husband had his command tour, which was 25 years ago, one of the things in the Navy is when your husband is at that level, you're expected to play the part too. I was a businesswoman. I didn't want any parts of this stuff. And I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old at that time. And my husband took command of a ship that had 350 men. Women were not on there at that time. And I remember sitting on the bow of the ship and I'm like, I'm not playing. I'm not going to play. This is too stressful. I want no parts of this. I'd already had a bad experience. I don't want to play here. And I heard a little voice in my ear, my left ear, Archangel Michael was yelling at me. And I basically heard him say, are you going to allow past experiences to control you, or are you going to control past experiences? And I remember sitting back in my chair while my husband's up there at the podium talking, going, excuse my language, oh, shit. And I took ownership of it. And when I commit to something, I commit. However, what that tour taught me was there's a difference between committing to something and a difference to committing with boundaries. I had no boundaries. I allowed my phone to ring from 6 a.m. until midnight. I was serving. And that's one of the points with entrepreneurs is we want to serve our communities. Look at who's here. Look at the communities that we serve. We want to serve and make a difference. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know, I was president of this club. I was doing this. I was doing that. I was doing this for the officers' wives. I was doing this for the enlisted spouses. I was in between trying to take care of kids. And my daughter got very sick and on and on and on and on and on. I didn't know how to stop. So that meltdown when we got off the ship is what was the start of my healing journey, doing everything that I do now. So Tzeli, I commend you for the boundaries, because if there's anything that tour taught me was the power of boundaries and knowing when to say, no, I'm not going to do this, but this is what I will do. Call me in a month and we can set up an appointment. Just what you said. So thank you for sharing that, because it triggered that insight in me. And boundaries are very important. So Annette, you're the last one. Share with us. When you
Yes,
hear me say the word stress, what comes up in your mind's eye?
well, for me, it's like finding a way to relieve that stress, especially for a lot of my clients, especially for the cancer ones. We all know that 90% of any type of disease is caused by stress. So for me, it's like, okay, we need to counteract that when it comes into your life, like right away. So I have them put together a toolkit, which I've done for myself too, which is a toolkit of all the things that are right there at your fingertips for when you are feeling stressful. What can I reach for that's going to help me to relieve that? Whether it's, quotes or a book that has positive passages that help to relieve you, whether it's music, you know, um, any type of meditation, any type of relaxation technique that you can do to get you back into that parasympathetic state instead of that sympathetic. So you're back to rest, repair, relaxation. So that's really important. So it's just having these things at your fingertips that you don't have to search for. When you're stressed, you're like, oh, I just can't do it. Things that you can just look at or reach for. I have a folder for myself called personal uplifters that, if I get stressed, I look at that right away and pull that out. It's something just to kind of bring you back to that calm, relaxed, parasympathetic state where you're back to rejuvenated and back to able to be, present in your life and really be who you want to be. And it's like walking that talk and walking that path. So
I'm curious. Each of us have toolkits. Do you have a name for your toolkit?
I have different names for mine. For mine, it's like, different, I kind of go back and forth with it all the time. I call it, my main thing is my toolkit, but it's kind of like sort of my, it's sort of like the way of being. For me, it's like an alignment. It's it's your alignment toolkit.
Your alignment toolkit. Okay.
And I have alignment practice too. That's.
Anybody else have a name for their toolkit with all their tools and stuff in it?
I don't, but I'm thinking I should.
Okay. Mine's called the Shiftology Toolkit. I've been using that for 10 years. I'm reaching into my Shiftology. So that's why I was just curious, because we all have toolkits.
And we have a lot in our toolkits too.
Yeah, we do.
Each just touched on a little bit of what we have, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we have. Go ahead.
Part of my issue is that I don't use my own toolkit. I'm just not good at that. I mean, as I'm listening to all of you, we certainly talk a lot about boundaries, but I love the tying of intention to boundaries because it reminds me of why I should have boundaries. And I just recently was where you are, Tzeli. I needed to pull back from a bunch of stuff with RSM because I was feeling so overwhelmed and I didn't know what else to do other than pull back. And in the pulling back, I found myself having an intention, being aware of my intention that I needed to keep, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. You're doing this. And I really had not been functioning that way. So this is just even a real awareness for me. And I love that you have your toolkit, Annette, because it's so easy for me to be telling other people because I'm beyond that place. I'm 20 years beyond the place where I'm helping families now. And I forget that I still need my own toolkit. So this is very good.
What will help you remember, Michele? What will help you remember? What will help you remember?
Being intentional. I mean, I think I need to hang on to that. That's a word that I use a lot, but it's more do as I say, not as I do. And I need to do as I say myself.
Does everybody here have a sense of that? It's almost like an imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Who am I to be doing this if I'm not doing it for myself?
Mm-hmm. I do think about that all the time. And I think I have to be who I want to be and presenting myself, being truly authentic me and being aligned with who I really am in order to best serve my clients. So I do think about that on a daily basis. I put together an alignment practice of getting up in the morning and starting your day out with, from a positive place, from positive attitude, in doing the things that lift me up and bring me to my highest place. And, where I'm aligned with my highest self at that place by doing, I do yoga, meditation, journaling. It's like my little practice, I call it my alignment practice that puts me in where I'm being truly authentic. And I feel like that then I'm best serving my clients from that place. So I have thought about what you're saying, and this is what I put together in order to meet them, to be from my higher place of serving them.
Mhm.
And what do you
Yeah,
think
and
about that? Go ahead, Christina.
I was going to say with that, that's so true. And I find I just have to laugh. I laugh a lot at myself, with myself, whatever. I always have a sense of my guides and spirit just is like, oh, there she goes again, it's like, yep. Sometimes when I'm working with clients and things come out of my mouth and it's like, oh yeah, that's really good. Pay attention to that for me, and I think it's common with entrepreneurs that we can be sometimes far better at helping our clients than helping ourselves with things. And so it's really important to have these practices. I love what you were saying, Annette, too. And with regard to, for example, what a couple of you said about burning out, when I was in corporate, man, I was primarily in a man's world in science, right? And I was trying to do things the man's way, they're like, well, what's the big deal about that? I kept taking on, and I fried my adrenals, I burned them out. And my boss was like, what's the big deal? And I was fried working because I thought that's what I had to do. And I didn't have boundaries at that point. So that was a huge learning for me to set the boundaries, which then helps, of course, with stress. There's only so much we can do, and what are the most important things right now for us. And I know we all have our own ways to determine what that is. And for me, a lot of it is tapping into my own guidance,
Mm-hmm.
however we all do that. So.
And Tzeli, what about you?
Oh my gosh, all the amazing things you guys are saying. My mind is going crazy. So I guess what I can add to that whole great piece of discussion that regards, perhaps the dissonance between what we know and what we teach and what we do, as well as the imposter and inner critic. So much stuff I want to say about all this. But I guess if I was to summarize it for the benefit of our listeners, I would say that one of the least known stressors known to Earth is our inner critic and our imposter.
Mhm.
And the reason why those two little parts of us are the biggest stressors is because, unlike a one-time event, like a criticism, a failure, or somebody saying something we don't like to hear, our inner critic and our imposter are with us 24/7.
Mhm.
And what's not very commonly known, probably you guys know this, but the general population does not, is that self-judgment is perceived by our brain as a threat to our self-concept. So that state that Annette was talking about, shifting from sympathetic, which is stress mode, to parasympathetic, which is rest, digest, restore, can get activated. We can get stuck on stress mode, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, and sometimes for years. So it's really, really important for my friend Michele and for everybody else, since I used to motivate myself, like Christina was in a man's world in corporate healthcare, and I used to motivate myself by being hard on myself. It's really important to get in the way of that by simply changing how we relate to that inner critical voice. And one step, one breath, one practice, one day at a time, start bringing in self-compassion in the place of self-judgment. And if you guys are interested, I have a video on the inner critic. It's about 12 minutes long that I could put in our group, because we don't even realize we often attribute our stress to all those external things. But what's really keeping all that stress in our body and mind, impacting how we feel and function, is that inner critical voice. You didn't do this right. You didn't do that right. So yeah, self-compassion is a huge antidote to stress.
Yeah. And each behavior style is a little bit different. The dominance their emotion is not being in control. Those folks, and there's the very short, sweet, to the point folks. So the influencers are the rah-rahs, they have their pom-poms out there and they're the cheerleaders of the group, and their stressors is not being liked. If you're a speaker and you're one of those folks, you can have 100 people in the room, 99 love you, and you'll do everything possible to get that one to love you. Who doesn't? Instead of focusing on the 99. And then we have the folks that don't like change, or the customer service folks, and getting them to bob, weave, and shift. And then we've got the conscientious types, and they're the pessimists and the skeptics. And to what you're talking about, Tzeli, when they're pessimistic and skeptical, it's that they beat themselves up, but they beat everybody else along with them. So it's it's like, okay. So you guys are just absolutely amazing in talking about all these things, because when we put it all together in a pot, there is good stress. If you really think about it, stress is neither good nor bad. It's our perceptions of what is happening in front of us that creates negative stress. So that's the one thing that, it's our reaction to an event. So it's the event happens, our reaction to the event, and our actual behavior when it comes to the event. So we can have a reaction to it, but with training ourselves, we can get very quiet and have a different, take a different action towards something. So today, something that would have triggered me 25 years ago has a very different reaction today, because I've learned how to stay present, calm, cool, and allow these guys back here, my angels, to talk me off the ledge.
And Terry, just to add something to this beautiful summary that you just made, because you're right, stress is not really the problem, it's how long we use it by how we react to stressors. But I do want to add in there something that I found extremely interesting, being a worrywart all my life. Neuroscientist Jill Balti-Taylor explains that it takes about 1.5 minutes for a negative emotion that is triggered by a stressor to actually run through our body systems. And then we can go back to our parasympathetic mode where we're relaxed. We can access our prefrontal cortex, our creativity, our problem-solving abilities. So to your point, it takes 1.5 minutes for a stressor's negative event. But what's happening is through our mind, we ruminate, okay? Christina said something about something that I said. I took it personally. I'm thinking about it over and over. Then I call Annette and I talk to Annette about it. Then I send a text to you about it. Well, those thoughts actually are keeping the stressor in our body and mind 24/7. And that's how we overuse it. Because to your point, if we were to use it for the short spurts we're physiologically designed to handle, the response would be adaptive. We increase our heart rate. Okay, our energy is redirected from our brain to our muscles and groups to give a presentation, to do something that's difficult, and then we go back to our balanced state. It's how long we keep it, and it only takes 1.5 minutes. I just thought I'll throw this in there because
you taught me something new today. That is so interesting. I didn't realize it was 1.5 minutes. That is so cool.
Taylor. Yeah, I'm a student of both neuroscience and clinical practice. And Dan Siegel's mindset right now. I'm getting some additional certifications, and I'm learning so much from neuroscience. So much.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So I have a last. Go ahead.
I love this. I love bringing the science to it. So that always fascinates me, that intersection of the woo or the spiritual and the science, the grounded science, right? And what you're speaking to, what's so important with stress is if we can be present with it, and like you said, allow it to run through our body, give it that space, instead of trying to push it, make it be different, ruminate on it. It can work wonders. The more we can, when we feel those stressors, just be present to it, breathe into it, send it love, let it do what it needs to, and you find that it dissolves. you know?
It does. Okay.
That's
So
how
I'm
you cope with
go ahead.
grief.
Say that again, Michelle.
I said, that's how you cope with grief. You can't cope with grief by avoiding it. You have to face it. You have to go right through it. And then it's very healing. So that's very much a principle of dealing with grief.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Cool. So I have a last question before we start to wrap up. We are amazing women. We have a lot to offer. We are Wonder Women. See this? Wonder Women. And my daughter, she gave me this at Christmas. It's a Pez. That's Wonder Woman. Okay. So each of us have a superpower. What is your superpower that you use with yourself, with your clients, with your family? So Annette, let me start with you.
Mhm. For me, for my superpower is compassion and having heart. So I can connect with somebody at a heart level. With my clients, I can connect with them. I can get with them. I can relate to them on that heart level, and that really helps me to get them to open up to me, for them to share with me, for them to really get to the meat, to the root of what they're experiencing, and for them to be able to, to release it and create great transformation in their life. So that's for mine, with not only my clients, but for my family as well.
Very, very nice. Very nice. And Tzeli, tell me about you.
My superpower is how I've made resilience super, super practical. That's my superpower, because I still have tons of things I'm working on. I'm no longer driven to arrive at a certain destination, but my joy, I have fallen in love with the journey of the moment to moment adjustments I can make every single moment of every day to stay
Nice.
upright and balanced in the tightrope of life. So, that includes, I start and end my day kind of like Annette. And by the way, my toolkit is called Mind Zen, and mind is with a Y, because my mind and your mind is the king, not mine. All I have is a great framework and a toolkit, but then it's up to the individual,
Nice.
So basically, once I focus on my intention for balance and resilience, then I start every day and I end every day with mindfulness practices, breathing techniques, walks in nature, and so on and so forth. But the most magical part is how I'm looking at it. I'm on a tightrope, and it's about staying balanced. And what jobs can I give to my mind and body to do, rather than what our brain's evolution and my past experiences have taught them to do, which is to worry, ruminate, catastrophize. You can fill in the blanks. So resilience is my superpower. On the eve, 2 weeks away from my second spinal surgery, that's my superpower. I'm still standing.
Very cool. What about you, Michelle? What is your superpower?
Oh, this is such a tough question. I'm thinking about it as you're talking. And for me, it is, I say I'm tenacious, and to me, that's a good thing. And it involves resilience, and it involves an unwillingness to give up. And when I work with my families, I help them with the other thing is perspective taking, because that's a big part of working with families, is enabling them to take each other's perspective and then see how they can work through it. And I don't allow anyone that I'm in my sphere to decide that there's not something they can do to move forward. There always is. And so for me, it's that encouragement and that helping people to have the perspective to see that that they can be resilient, that they can help others be resilient. I don't know. It's just all of this stuff sort of, I haven't succinctly defined my superpower, but it's those kinds of things.
What do you think, ladies? What's your superpower?
Part of what I'm seeing, Michelle, is compassion.
I was going to say the same thing too. I see a lot of compassion with you. You just being able to relate, just relate on a very personal level.
And I too see compassion in you. I do believe compassion is your superpower. What about you, Tzeli? What do you see?
What was coming up whenever I listen to Michele talk is heart.
Mhm.
So I guess it's because, compassion comes from the Latin word for, heart, right? So
Mhm.
that's what keeps coming up to my mind.
Mhm.
Her
Okay, well,
superpower
thank
is
you.
her beautiful heart.
Yes,
Mhm.
there you go. So any clearer for you, Michele?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So can you own that?
We don't see ourselves the way others do, so it's good to hear from others. So yeah, thank you.
You're swimming in the water. That's why you don't see it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what about you, Christina? What is your superpower?
Oh my goodness. I think my superpower, and it's always been with me, is I see others. I see who they are. I see the magic that they have within them, and really can hold the loving space for that to help them discover that. And I'm a healer. It's interesting. I was on a client call yesterday, and we've been coaching, I guess, a couple months. And for the second time, he just looked at me and he just said, "There you are doing it again. How do you do that? What are you doing?" And I'm like, and what it was my presence. Is I was just holding this space for him. He's actually in Thailand. And he's like, "I can feel you." And I can feel it in me, and it has me be really calm. And he just feels really good, so that's part of my superpower, I guess, is that.
What do you call that, Christina?
I would say it's a loving presence, and I see who people are, and
Nice.
I can help them see that as well and bring that out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And to wrap up, my superpower is intuitive resilience. I'm all about the intuition. You guys know that. I am all about the intuition and listening, really, really listening and getting to the core of what the challenge is that the client presents to me. I can get there very fast, very, very fast, and unravel it quickly. So, ladies, this was fun. Should we do it again?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Do it
absolutely.
again? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. I'm Terry Wildemann, and we have Annette and Christina and Michele and Tzeli. And we had a great fireside chat today on the topic of stress, and we'll probably be doing it again. So if you have a stress question, look at all the ladies here that you can reach out to, all these amazing, amazing, talented, beautiful entrepreneurs, and they're beautiful from the inside out and the outside in. And when we own who we are, that's where the magic happens. So I look forward to seeing you next time, possibly doing another panel, and to your success.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Terry.
you, Terry.
Thank you, everybody.